Before we start with the questions, and for the new people out here, because I'm seeing some new faces, our format is following. We will go over the big questions from Twitter, then we will open up the chat for the live ones. The whole process should be about an hour, give or take. And without further ado, Giuseppe, could you please briefly introduce yourself to us, and generally, how do you get involved with the project before we go on with the questions?
Yeah, of course. First of all, thanks obviously for having me. It's super excited being here. Looking forward to speaking to you all. I saw all the questions that everybody was posting in the comments when you guys announced, and there is a lot of good stuff. So hopefully we have a good conversation there. I saw Vadim, the ones that you shared in the Google Doc. So yeah, I'm excited for it. Intro about me. So I'm Giuseppe. I'm part of the IoTeX team. Now this is my third year with the IoTeX team. I'm part of the DevRel team, so we do a lot of work with our developer ecosystems, projects that are, so not only on let's say, individual developer level, but also a little bit larger teams. We've had a lot of success in the past few months with our accelerator teams building in the DePIN space. We help them, with infrastructure. We help them figuring out what best, let's say, infrastructure components they can use out of the whole IoTeX stack. So it's been really fun journey working with so many people, especially because you're always in the trenches. You're always helping them out, figuring things out and, expanding. So that's super cool. I'm excited because a lot of these projects, maybe you guys know already, maybe you'll get to know in the future as they're all about to sort of officially launch their tokens. Some have already, they launched their devices. So it's a great opportunity to be in this space. Did you want an intro about IoTeX or?
Yeah, let's give the users a brief introduction before we dive deep into the technical stuff.
Yeah, good point. So IoTeX, essentially, for those of you that are not familiar with, we are providing basically infrastructure, an end-to-end infrastructure to build DePIN projects. And the most important part about the IoTeX infrastructure is that it is a modular infrastructure, meaning that it's made up of various components, modules that a DePIN project can use to basically just go to market faster, to basically not have to reinvent the wheel every time you want to launch a new project. And the other very important part is that this modular infrastructure has all these components that are in some way or another anchored on the IoTeX layer 1 blockchain, which makes basically the whole infrastructure verifiable. What it means, maybe we can get to more details in just a few minutes, but essentially, if you look at it, once you have, for example, a way of managing the identity of your devices, that's also anchored on chain, on smart contracts, that all can be verified. Same thing goes for off-chain computing and all these other components that we'll look at in just a minute. But that's sort of basically the bird's eye overview of what IoTeX is doing.
Fascinating. Well, without further ado, let's dive into the questions.
Sounds great.
How will IoTeX infrastructure specifically contribute to the advancement of AI? What role does real-time data play in training those models? And how can it impact the accuracy and capabilities of AI agents?
Okay, so I think before we dive into how will IoTeX infrastructure contribute, we should maybe spend a couple of words or a few words on how, let's say, DePIN in general contributes, right? And what do you think? Do you think your audience is pretty familiar with the concept of DePIN, Vadim, or should we give them a quick intro?
Well, let's give a quick intro, and we will be posting recaps. We'll do a YouTube recap. We will also do a text recap afterwards. So it's great to have kind of concise article piece of content afterwards. So yeah, absolutely. If you want segue a little bit, do some intro about DePIN.
Yeah.
Fascinating.
Cool. Okay, so I guess once we take care of all the introductions, then it's easier to like follow along. We've introduced IoTeX. Now we'll introduce DePIN. DePIN, it's an acronym that stands for Decentralized Physical Infrastructure Networks. And in just a few words, is any type of application that basically facilitate a token economy to incentivize the deployment of physical infrastructure, which means that you basically use token incentives to incentivize your community, let's say, to deploy some sort of like infrastructure that and contribute data to your own project. And normally this infrastructure then provides some sort of service to like a third party end users. So on one end, you have your community of, let's say, device owners that basically have these devices do X, like any sort of like, physical work. It can be, for example, providing connectivity. It can be maybe providing like weather data. It can be contributing like data or telemetry data from your car, or maybe data about energy consumption or energy supply, etc., etc. So that's on the supply side. That's your community. That's basically the users that normally use a device, or maybe a device that's specific to your network, or it's already a pre-existing device like your phone or like a desktop computer. And on the other side, you have the demand, which is basically the users that end up basically using this service. So I think the biggest example, or the most famous example of like an end user facing DePIN project is Helium. And I'm sure you guys are all familiar with it, but if you're not familiar, it's basically like it uses the same model, right? So it's a network of like basically routers that people buy, deploy, and then provide connectivity to their end users. These people get rewarded with the HNT tokens, and then the end users basically just pay for this service. And that's basically what DePIN is. So in a way, it's a way of using Web3 technologies, smart contracts, and tokens to incentivize, providing, these kind of services that are more like normally like Web2 based or IoT based. So so now back to the question, right? How will IoTeX infrastructure contribute to advancement of AI? So if you think about, for example, DePIN and AI, right? It's a pretty hot topic. It has been, and for me, it's kind of interesting because I feel that AI is sort of like a good gateway for like DePIN mass adoption. And I think DePIN is also a good gateway for like a different approach to AI. And what we see is that, for example, a lot of projects work on leveraging like a DePIN model for AI projects, like for example GPU lending, right? Or maybe data storage. So all these are basically decentralized applications where there is like, instead of like relying on like a big centralized, like OpenAI or, Google or, other big centralized system and centralized models, you basically allow individuals to contribute data. I don't know if normally I would be into like, maybe training these models as much as like maybe fine tuning these models. I think that would be more interesting using a DePIN model. But basically you incentivize the community to either lend GPU power or maybe lend data to basically training these models or fine-tuning these models, or even like for AI inference. And in doing so, you basically reward people for contributing this data that is like super valuable for AI, right? And then these models can then be sold or can be leveraged by like the end user. So the model is still the same. I feel that so this is basically a DePIN applied to AI in very general, high-level terms. Applying IoTeX infrastructure to AI, in this model specifically, would be that I think the key part is that since, if you think about it, as I was saying earlier, the IoTeX infrastructure is pretty much verifiable. All of a sudden, you have a verifiable way of looking at the rewards that maybe people are getting for contributing data. There is a lot of parts that make it very, very interesting for working on these models. So I feel that IoTeX being like a fully decentralized infrastructure would be the more sort of like verifiable, composable, and transparent way to basically contribute to AI in this sense. It seems pretty vague. I think as we get into the other questions, you guys understand more about what I mean when I say verifiable infrastructure or composable, and then I think this will come more, will make more sense, and maybe we can like have a more detailed answer to this question towards the end of the space.
Awesome. That would be a good sort of wraparound to the start at the end, so to speak.
Exactly.
Well, without further ado, let's continue on. As IoTeX transitions into version 2.0, what new tools, protocols, or frameworks are being introduced to enhance the experience of developers building DApps on DePIN infrastructure? And how these changes impact the overall ease of use and performance for end users?
Exactly. So that's kind of like the question that I think would help you guys understand a little bit more about sort of like what I was hinting at earlier with AI. So IoTeX announced IoTeX 2.0 about a month ago, maybe like 6 weeks. And the whole idea was, so if you think about it, like IoTeX has been around as a layer 1 since 2019, right? After that, like there were many products that were built on top of this layer 1, like, wallet, like a bridge. We started working a couple of years ago on like the decentralized off-chain compute network, WebString. We started working on other protocols, and basically with IoTeX 2.0, we put everything together under a cohesive infrastructure, which means that now as a DePIN project, you basically use various pieces of this infrastructure to build your DePIN without having to like reinvent the wheel or without having to build everything from scratch. And all these components then would make your project more composable. Maybe let's say that, you're like, project, project 1 is building their own DePIN on IoTeX, and then maybe, project 2 and project 3 already also building on IoTeX. All these 3 projects are, let's say, using the IoTeX identity protocol. Then the identity of all these devices can be composable. Maybe project 2 and project 3, or all 3 of them can collaborate together and maybe make something a little bit more interesting with a little bit more like cross DePIN data. And that makes obviously your application maybe more useful to like a wider user base, for example. So what IoTeX does that other like DePIN ecosystems don't do is we basically have identified that you not only need like a layer 1 blockchain when you do DePIN, right? And you not only need the network of devices that basically contribute to your DePIN network, you need like a whole set of other components in a DePIN project. For example, you need something we have a component that's like an SDK to sign data from your devices and send them to like your network. That should be decentralized. You need an identity, a system to manage the identity of the machines in your network, of the owners of these machines in your network, and that also should be decentralized. We have these like an off-chain computing layer to compute all this data that gets pushed to your DePIN network, and that should also be decentralized. You basically need, anytime you need to decentralize each of these components, it's basically kind of a project on its own. So IoTeX 2.0 wrapped all of this under this 2.0 umbrella. And there are some components that we don't build in-house, like storage, for example, but we do interface with other like decentralized storage providers. And we have, some partners that we've been working with to make this happen. So you as a DePIN project, you come in, you're like, okay, cool. I deploy my smart contracts, I have my network of devices. Maybe I want to use like IoTeX identity layer. I want to use the device SDK, and I want to use the off-chain computing. Cool. And then you're like, okay, what options do I have for decentralized storage? And then you look at a list of all these decentralized storage providers. You choose the one that best fits your network. All of a sudden, you have a fully decentralized DePIN project. And why is that important? I mean, it's the same sort of like arguments of why Web3 is important, right? With the decentralization comes trustlessness, comes censorshiplessness. You can be more transparent with your community. You can then, given that everything is on chain and is verifiable, then all of a sudden, people or your community don't have to just trust that you have, let's say, 1 million devices or 10 million devices. They don't have to trust that a device can make X amount of tokens per month. All of this stuff is on chain. So once that is on chain and that can be verifiable and proved, then you can use maybe, you can use this data in like, I don't know, some sort of marketplace, or you can use this data for AI, kind of like, going back to the previous answer. You can use this data in maybe like some DeFi, protocols, et cetera, et cetera. So there is a huge discussion in the DePIN space about verifiability. And I feel that the only way, or the most direct way to basically have verifiability is by decentralizing the DePIN stack. And currently, maybe I should have said this at the beginning, but we see that like almost all DePIN projects are pretty much centralized applications. They have a decentralized network of devices, and then they have the smart contracts on chain, which are normally just like their token. Everything else is normally like cloud-based. So our goal is to, little by little, make it so that these projects can seamlessly either transition, or if they're building from scratch, build decentralized DePIN.
Cool, very cool. And I completely agree with you. It is hard, but very important to become a truly trustless solution, right? Where you don't have a really centralized entity that controls it, and then when it becomes trustless, verify. The way to verify becomes very obvious at that point.
Yeah, exactly. And then once it's verifiable, then you have all these other use cases. Like right now, if let's say DePIN Project 1 has to work with DePIN Project 2, it's kind of all done behind the scenes, like they have to first trust each other, look at each other data, NDAs, whatever. If everything is decentralized and is trustless, then it makes it much, much easier. It makes it even easier for another builders want to access this data, build their own type of application, So I feel it starts expanding, and it starts scaling a lot more.
Yes, that is absolutely true. All right, let's continue on with the questions. With the launch of IoTeX Web Wallet version 2 was highlighted as an all-in-one DePIN asset manager. What unique features does it offer that position it above other wallets in the DePIN space?
Yeah, that's a very good one. So I think we are the only basically DePIN specific wallet. So what we do is, if you go to the web wallet, basically you see that there are a ton of DePIN tokens. We're very focused on basically just providing. So on one end, we provide an entry for new DePIN projects that want to obviously list their token somewhere and have people maybe start trading it or being exposed to it in a decentralized way. And on the other end, it's maybe interesting DePIN users that interested DePIN users that want to maybe expose to like new projects. And so we created basically this hub where it's much easier to do so. And then you can like cross trade across, you know, supported chains, and we're expanding the cross-chain functionalities in the coming weeks as well. We just announced also the launch of the bridge on Solana, so to expand on the Solana community and maybe have the Solana community also be exposed to the community ecosystem, be exposed to the IoTeX ecosystem as well. So it's a lot of interesting pieces. You can use the wallet as a builder. I mean, there is a lot of like applications. We, for example, also created like a DePIN hub, where we have like some DePIN assets, and then you can do liquidity mining. So there is a lot of like interesting initiatives that are like very, very tailored only to DePIN. And I think it's probably it's a unique feature that IoTeX is bringing on right now. That also is paired with like our DePIN scan tool, where you can find all sorts of information about DePINs, all sorts of news, all sorts of updates on new projects launching, when they're like going to maybe release their token, their revenue, etc.
Cool, awesome. And I'm not super versed in the DePIN space. Is there a lot of competition when we speak about wallets?
Well, there are. I mean, it's like, it's not that you need like a specific type of wallet to basically interact with like a DePIN application. So any wallet really works. You know, we're collaborating with like OKX as well, and all the other, you know, major wallets. So it's not that you need like a specific wallet, but at the same time, I haven't seen any other sort of like ecosystem launching a wallet that is like catered towards like DePIN assets. Because sometimes like these DePIN assets are kind of like small, you know, they have like maybe a small volume, or they have a small TVL, etc. So maybe it's hard to like interact with DePIN projects. So we wanted to still allow these projects to like be exposed to the general community, and then the community be exposed to these. So I thought that was super interesting, because it also pairs with like our bridge, because obviously, you know, some of these assets are in various ecosystems. So try to make the like experience for end users a lot smoother. And I think that also opens up like a larger user pool for the DePINs themselves.
Awesome, thank you. Yeah, that's why I was asking, because we obviously work with a lot of different wallets, StealthEX, and I'm in constant conversation with a lot of wallets, and I cannot recall, you know, any other wallet being focused towards DePIN assets. So it is great that, you know, bringing something very unique to the space in a sense.
Yeah, I totally agree. And it's the same thing that we do with like the other pieces of infrastructure. Like, it's kind of like a question that we get asked often, you know, and it often comes up. It's like, obviously, you know, there are many ecosystems that like host DePIN projects, right? And it kind of like brings us back to the couple of questions prior. It's like, it's not about just providing like a layer one where you can deploy your smart contracts and deploy your token. It's about providing like a whole infrastructure to build DePIN. And that's basically what IoTeX is doing. And that's, I think right now, IoTeX is the only ecosystem that is doing that. And obviously, I mean, if you just want like a layer one for your token, you can do that anywhere. There is no like specific, you know, the same way you launch a DePIN token, it's like any other token in the Web3 space. But if you try to like build a whole cohesive infrastructure, you try to like really specifically use components that are made for DePIN, for the challenges that DePIN has, or for the, mainly for the main challenges that DePIN has, then IoTeX is the only infrastructure that is doing that right now.
Awesome, very interesting. All right, we have some more questions coming up. Can you explain the features of IoTube as a cross-chain bridge facilitating asset exchanges between IoTeX and a major layer 1, layer 2 blockchains? How does IoTube enhance interoperability and facilitate seamless asset transfers across different blockchain networks?
Yeah, so IoTube has been around for a while. I mean, it's a decentralized bridge. Right now, the supported ecosystems are Binance, Polygon, Ethereum, and we recently, as I was just saying, also added Solana, which is pretty big because I think there are only three bridges or three main bridges that like basically connect the world of Solana with like EVM. And IoTube now is one of them. And, we launched while we were in Singapore for Token 2049. We have already a few DePIN projects that are basically providing liquidity pools for their tokens on IoTeX, bridging from Solana. We're planning on, having some of our projects also add their liquidity to Solana as well, and have some liquidity pools in the Solana ecosystem as well. So I think that's a super cool initiative, and the whole goal here is for a project not to be a DePIN project, especially not to just be confined to one ecosystem, but really expand their user base, because it's really important for bootstrapping the whole network. And it's really important because then if you have a community that is not only on IoTeX, but it can also be on Polygon, it can also be on Solana, etc., then you can increase your DePIN network, and by doing so, then you also increase the demand for your DePIN and the outreach. So that's really, really important. How the IoTube facilitates? I think that's basically what I was saying. The whole goal here is to basically make DePIN very interoperable amongst the main ecosystems. Another cool thing that we announced in Token 2049, kind of like in the same, following the same spirit of interoperability here, is our collaboration with Polygon and their aggregation layer. And so we are really pushing towards making a seamless experience for any DePIN project and any DePIN user, so that it won't matter anymore if like you decide to launch your token on chain 1, you can already capture like all the users from like chain 2, chain 3, etc. You can have anyone from chain 2 or chain 3 contribute to your DePIN network. And so, that's the goal. Interoperability amongst all ecosystems.
Awesome, very cool. Yeah, that second part of the question is kind of odd because IoTube is the facilitator for the interoperability essentially itself. All right.
Yeah, exactly. And I mean, I don't know if maybe the question was meant more like on a technical level, how it does it, but we can just keep it high level, and basically that's the end result, right? We want interoperability amongst all networks. And then we want, for example, any project that's maybe deployed on Polygon, let's say, maybe they want to use IoTeX identity infrastructure, they totally can, and it should be completely seamless. So if we really want any DePIN project to be decentralized and verifiable, then we should be able to like spread our infrastructure into as many ecosystems as possible. And that's the goal.
Yeah, 100%. I do believe that interoperability is key to, essential adoption of the asset and just the project itself, just because being confined to one little corner of the industry is just not enough to sustain over long term, in my opinion. Definitely needs to be interoperable and, bringing value all across the space, not just the little corner of its own. All right. We have
Totally
some more
agree.
questions left.
Yeah,
Let's continue on. Can you elaborate more on the Halo Grants initiative and its tailored support for DePIN projects at various stages of development? How do these grants foster innovation, provide professional guidance, and drive forward projects within the IoTeX network?
for sure. So the Hello grants have been around in our ecosystem for a while. And we recently also paired the Halo grants with the accelerator that I was kind of hinting at earlier. And the whole idea is we basically try to support DePIN projects at all stages. And at the end, we decided that Halo grants were more sort of like useful for like smaller DePINs, maybe one person, maybe two people, maybe three. And we want them to, let's say if they have a good idea and they have some sort of like technical skills and they want to like learn more about DePIN because they want to start experimenting, they fit this initiative really well. Because, you know, maybe their idea is great, they just don't have the resources, maybe to just get started, maybe they can build like a small POC or something like that, or maybe some projects want to like port their smart contracts from like one chain onto IoTeX and, you know, grow their user base in doing so. Then yeah, Halo grants is the way to go. And then maybe for like DePIN projects that are a little bit more advanced, maybe they already raised like a seed round, maybe they've done a Series A, maybe they already have a user base. Then for that, since they obviously have different needs, we basically started this accelerator program. It was actually the first DePIN specific accelerator. And we already had 2 cohorts. So it's been about, let's say 5 or 6 months, actually 7 months. Wow, time flies. It's been 7 months since we announced our first cohort. And basically it was at Denver in February. And now we're basically finishing up with our second cohort. There'll be more coming. And we've seen so many interesting projects basically coming out of the accelerator so far. And some of them already raised like their next round. We had a lot of success with some of our projects basically launching their devices or device NFTs and selling out basically almost immediately. There are going to be more projects doing device sales in the very near future, and so we help them support with that, with marketing, with community, and obviously on the tech side, because we really want all these projects to like collaborate also with each other, be interoperable with other ecosystems, be composable among themselves. And yeah, so we put a lot of effort into basically helping any project out that is interested, from like, you know, either one person team to like, you know, larger teams, be it either Halo grants or the accelerator program.
Awesome. Yeah, I do believe that the incentive programs are very important to not just to attract new users, new developers, etc., but it kind of keeps the cogs moving, so to speak, and all, and you know, making new projects, new ideas pop left and right. So it's definitely a good way to approach this.
Yeah, totally.
Alrighty, let's continue on with the questions. With the introduction of decentralized governance in IoTeX 2.0, how does the platform balance governance efficiency with decentralization, and what mechanisms are in place to prevent centralization of power within the ecosystem?
Yeah, super cool. So yeah, we've had, we've had decentralized governance basically forever, in IoTeX. And, we have like new improvement proposals to like improve the protocol, etc. So that is, there has always been the case. And with DePIN specifically, we passed another proposal a few months back. I don't remember the exact IIP number, IoTeX improvement proposal number, but it was basically about creating this new DAO that we called, as a working title, we called the Marshall DAO. And it's basically about creating this DAO to help DePIN projects, maybe allocate funds to specific DePIN projects that maybe the community believes that they have a, they're interesting, or they can maybe like grow more, etc. So we basically, on top of like providing a whole infrastructure for DePIN projects to come and build whatever they want to build, we also provide these like governments for the whole IoTeX ecosystem to help these DePIN projects. And there are so many initiatives. There are many proposals that like we have sort of like we're testing with our community. We were, for example, thinking about having like special DAOs for like for specific needs of certain DePIN projects. Maybe one just to like, to work on like help with marketing, one to just help with community, one to just help with DeFi. So we're trying to create a whole ecosystem that it also includes governance to basically help help all these DePINs grow.
Awesome. All right. Seems like we have the last question up, and then we will go to the live ones. Seeing a lot of hands raised, so that should be interesting.
All right.
How have the real-world events influenced development direction or partnerships for IoTeX?
Oh, sweet. Yeah. Well, the first real-world event I think was Denver 23. So it's like a year and a half ago, maybe a little bit more. And since then, I mean, the last real world event we did was in Singapore last week. And I mean, we've seen an insane growth. And that's like because, we put a lot of effort on the IoTeX front, but also all of our projects, in our ecosystems really helped out all our partners. And it's been an amazing journey. The events totally influenced the partnerships with IoTeX, because through the events we have like collaborated with like so many interesting projects. We try to give exposure to all the like DePIN projects in our ecosystem. Like this time around, last week we had like this DePIN village, where we had like all sorts of like DePIN projects with their devices, and people could like come test the device, play with it. And so that was super cool. Most of those projects were part of our ecosystem, but not all of them. So what I'm trying to say here is that like we not only like push, the projects in the IoTeX ecosystem, but we basically try to like, push the DePIN space as a whole. So any project that's interesting, we help out. Because I feel, I'm a big believer that like, I don't think we're at the stage in DePIN where we should really compete, because it's kind of like, very, very early stage. I think we're all more at the stage where we should all help each other out. And if IoTeX has a larger ecosystem and maybe we want to like push other projects that are maybe part of other ecosystems, I think that's totally fine, because as the more projects succeed, then the more the DePIN space succeeds as a whole. So, so that's basically what we do. We try to give everybody a platform to maybe share their opinions. We invite like DePIN KOLs. We do like big announcements. We have people like try out devices. We had a very cool device giveaway as well at the event. So it definitely influences with the partnerships that we have made, after the events over this like year and a half. And in terms of influencing the development of IoTeX, I feel that's kind of like a byproduct. Like if you think about it, once you have all these many like, KOLs or people sharing their opinions, we always have like an ear out in the market for like what's going on. Then we use that to kind of like corroborate our thesis on what we think DePIN needs. I think it's been often, honestly, the other way around. I feel like sometimes our thesis have become like industry-wide thesis. Once when, for example, we started applying the verifiable off-chain compute to DePIN. Then we saw that becoming like more and more popular as a narrative in the space. We like basically came up with like applying the modularity to DePIN. That became another narrative in the space. We started talking about like verification and verifiability in DePIN back when we launched the Pebble Tracker 5 years ago. And now we see that becoming like a pretty hot narrative in the space. So yeah, I feel that the events are a good way of all of these theses, all of these narratives, all of these people to come together, be in the same place, and basically innovate more.
Yeah, absolutely. And the approach that you mentioned is not to compete and just rather help each other out to, because we're still early. I just think it should be a general approach in our industry, at least in our little corner of, StealthEX, what we do within the, kind of swapper slash the proxy exchange solutions. We treat each other as not as a competition, rather as a partner, just because in order for us to sustain, in order for us to kind of be able to stay afloat and, grow, any, predatory tactics or aggressive competition, I believe, should not be implemented, because if this occurs, one project will lead to another project, and then it will be just chaos. They will not be productive for the industry as a whole, right? So it's definitely, in my opinion, the most right approach is rather treat other projects in the space as their partners rather than your competition.
Yeah, exactly. And that kind of plays into the whole interoperability conversation that we were having, right? Like, if you provide more interoperability, and if you really push for that, then all of a sudden you kind of like erase the need for competition, because to me it doesn't really matter what ecosystem basically you're part of. We're all kind of part of the same ecosystem at the end. So that's kind of like the thought behind it. And it's a win-win, because that makes it like easy for the end users. They don't have to go nuts like trying to figure out where their tokens are in which ecosystem. And also for the DePIN project itself, because then they have a way broader basically pool of community people that can basically expand their network.
Absolutely. All right. Without further ado, let's move into the live questions. I'm seeing plenty hands out there. Let's try to pick someone who has been here for a while. This person has been here since the very beginning. Magnus, adding you as a speaker. Magnus, you can speak now. You have to unmute yourself. There's a little microphone on the left side of your device.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, we
Yes.
can hear you.
Yeah, so basically my question is, can you explain how the modular architecture of IoTeX 2.0 support the creation of specialized scalable dApps? And also followed with this question, maybe you can give us a comparison how your modular architecture is better than any other existing solution currently available in market. Thank you.
Yeah, sure. Thanks for the question. We kind of like hinted upon it earlier. So let's see. I'm trying to like maybe say something new, like without having to repeat what I said earlier. But if you think about the modular infrastructure, right? So why is that important? Imagine a modular infrastructure kind of like being in a restaurant. Like you come, you sit down, you basically have a menu, and you choose what you need from the menu. And so it's the same idea. You are a DePIN project. You look at the IoTeX menu, and you basically choose what's best for your project, right? because each project is different. So we try to abstract this infrastructure enough that it can basically work with as many projects as possible, but yet people should be able to choose because each project is different. So, and so why the modular infrastructure? That's the reason, like each project has different needs. Now, what does modularity empower? Modularity empower a few main things. One is composability, meaning, like I was saying earlier, if DePIN project 1, 2, and 3 all use maybe the IoTeX identity protocol, that means that they all share a protocol where the identity of their devices, the identity of the owners of the devices, the identity of the projects themselves recognize each other, which means that if two projects want to maybe collaborate with each other, they can in a much easier way. For example, let's go to like off-chain computing. Projects need off-chain computing for scalability, right? So you mentioned scalability earlier. The whole thing about scalability is pretty simple. Imagine you have this like network of devices. They send a lot of data. You cannot take this data and store it on like a smart contract and then compute on it, because that's not what smart contracts are made for. It would be slow, it would be expensive, and also it's not that you can do like any operation you want on a smart contract. You don't have access to like maybe all the libraries that you would have otherwise, outside of like a contract, etc., etc. So the whole point is if you use this like modular infrastructure, this composable infrastructure, then all of a sudden maybe you compute whatever you need to compute in your DePIN. Then these like proofs of computation can be stored in some sort of like decentralized storage, and maybe they can be used by other projects. Maybe somebody wants to build a project that is maybe not DePIN, but is based on DePIN data. And that kind of goes back to the beginning when we talked about AI, and maybe what I was saying was a little bit abstracted, but I hope that now is more clear, right? You can build on top of DePIN data. You can build AI on top of DePIN data. And when you build AI model, for example, you shouldn't be restricted to only one DePIN project. You should maybe try to like build on top of DePIN data from multiple projects. The way to do that is if the projects themselves are composable, and if the projects are interoperable with each other. So in the AI, basically we see, kind of like going back, that these become super important because you want to access as much data as possible. And thanks to the DePIN model, then you can reward all these people for providing all this data. Then you can have very specific data for maybe specific AI models, right? They're not so general and they're not so big. So it's interesting that in the AI industry now we see more of like these more custom, tailored, kind of like private models that maybe work better in certain circumstances than the gigantic like, OpenAI or, ChatGPT that knows everything, but is not really specific for your use case. So I think that's basically the power of modular infrastructure. So if you think about it on a scale, right, on a timeline, first comes modular infrastructure. Modular infrastructure provides composability. More composability provides more interoperability amongst projects. Modular infrastructure also provides verifiability. With all of these concepts together, then you can have applications built on top of DePIN projects, be it AI applications, DeFi applications, or any other like DePIN aggregates, aggregated DePIN. Other applications that are like based on aggregated DePIN data. And I think that's the end goal. Like once you start having that, then we're talking about mainstream adoption, right? So we basically, as infrastructure providers, are like the step before. We try to like empower the use cases that will eventually make DePIN adoption like go mass. I hope that made sense, Magnus. If you have maybe something is unclear, just let me know.
Yeah, thanks for the details answer. Have a great day. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Magnus. Okay, let's find someone else. I really don't like how it puts the verified or whatever users on top of the others, so you have to scroll all the way down to find the other people.
Yeah.
Okay. Pia, shading you at the speaker, trying to pick people who's been here the longer. Piash, you can speak now. You have to unmute yourself now.
Yes.
Okay, thank you for the opportunity. My question is, staking program is very important for any project. Can I stake your token? Do you have any plan of starting a staking program? This is my question. Thank you.
Can you repeat one more time, please? Are you asking if we have a staking program, or is that something more to it?
Okay. Repeat my question. My question is, staking program is very important for any project. Can I stake your token? Do you have any plan of starting a staking program? Thank you.
Yeah, I mean, so you're asking about our staking on IoTeX, right? Yes?
Yes.
Oh, okay. Yeah, that's easy. Yeah, I mean, IoTeX has been running since 2019, right? That's the layer 1. And so it runs on a delegated proof of stake. So obviously we do have staking. You can go to our staking portal. I think it's stake.iotex.io. Let me just check real quick. iotex.io. Yes, it's stake.iotex.io, and basically you can stake IoTeX. You become a delegate if you want. You can maybe we also do like liquid staking. We actually passed a proposal a few months ago where basically your staking market can become an NFT, so that can be traded. You can maybe stake and vote to certain delegates. So there is a lot of stuff that you can do. So you can go to stake.iotex.io and basically become part of become a delegate, or, sort of like be part of the movement, be part of the community. And I think we have about 110. I think it's between 110 or 120 delegates. And the top 36 that get voted, then those are the ones that basically just mine the blocks. And then you get the rewards for that, and you can share with like your own community or however you prefer. We also do have, there are some services that you can use for like staking, so you don't have to kind of like, when you run your node, you don't have, like, they automate this whole process as well. But I feel, if you go to stake.iotex.io, basically everything to learn is there. Otherwise, that's kind of like general for everybody in the audience. If you're interested in knowing more about what I was saying, you can check out the documentation if you're like more technically inclined, and that's docs.iotex.io.
Okay, thank you, Giuseppe.
Sure.
Okay.
Are we taking one more?
Looks like we are approaching the time. Do you want to?
Well, let's take last one.
If you want to.
Okay, last one, and then we say goodbye.
That works to me, yeah. And usually when you start taking too many, it starts to repeat itself. Yeah. Okay, this person has been here. John Crypto, inviting you to speak. John Crypto, you can speak now. You have to unmute yourself. Same. Yep, there we go.
Jim, everyone, I'm audible.
Yes.
Yep.
Okay, thank you very much. My question is, what has been the challenges this project has faced since 2019 after launch?
So many, man. I mean, I'll just keep it short, but like, I mean, technical challenges, maybe we don't get into it, but like let's say as a narrative, I think when IoTeX started in like 2019, the whole concept of like putting together IoT and blockchain was very foreign to people. And I remember even like a couple of years ago, maybe going to like events or talking to people and like trying to explain what we were doing, which was basically DePIN, but it didn't really have a name yet. It was very difficult. And it was difficult to then get people to understand the value of what we were doing and this whole idea of like a machine economy and this whole idea of like machine networks that basically generated some income and then maybe using those derivatives for like DeFi applications or, you know, owning your data, all these things that like now everybody's kind of like talking about. Now the whole sector has like a commonly accepted name. That was not the case up to like a year and a half ago or maybe 2 years ago. You know, I think even when we had our first real world event, DePIN was not even a thing. You know, there were other names, other things that like people were calling the sector. And we actually came up with we had our own definition. It was machine fi, so the economy of machines. And so, yeah, that's been one of the biggest challenges is like when you start doing something that's like new, it takes a while for the general public to get on board. And then, so that's one. The other is, you know, we try to like create new things, like new protocols that have not been used before. And so that's challenging. Like when we created like the off-chain computing layer, we started talking about this like layer 2 for machine data before like the Ethereum layer 2s were a thing, you know? And so the whole concept of a layer 2 was already like difficult. On top of that, we were talking about not rolling up like transactions. We're talking about rolling up data. So it was very foreign to people, right? And then it's hard because you don't have like, it's hard to run like user research on top of this kind of stuff because you're like the first of a kind. Same thing with like our identity protocol. Now we are like pushing this whole decentralization of the DePIN stack, while maybe some other ecosystems say it doesn't matter. And so I think we find each other in that kind of like, on that boat again, where we're pushing for something that we know is right. Maybe other people don't see it yet, but you still have to keep on pushing, right? So there has been, many challenges over the years. These were just like some of the narrative challenges that maybe, to maybe, you know, inspire you guys a little bit or, I hope that maybe.
Awesome.
Yeah,
Thank
sure.
you.
Yeah, just last question, please. Okay, so after all these challenges, what has been your strategy in overcoming some of these challenges that are possible to overcome at this current stage? You get that?
Strategy for overcoming these challenges?
Yeah, exactly.
Well, it's kind of like, I don't know if that's if it's an answerable question. I mean, each challenge has its own strategy. So, in terms of product, for example, once you have a challenge, you first need to figure out, what's the market fit for your product, what's the demand for your product. You do a lot of user research, then you build, then you iterate, then you test. Then if it works, you keep going. If it doesn't, you build from scratch. And so, I mean, but that's a general strategy for maybe like a product, right? But then when you have narrative, challenge, like people don't understand or, people haven't caught up with what you're doing and it's right, then it's a different type of challenge, requires a different strategy. So I think that's kind of like case by case.
Okay, thank you very much. I hope to see you at the top, man. Thank you very much.
Yeah, thanks, John, for sure.
Thank you, John. All right, Giuseppe, I think we've done it. Thank you for this very informative session. I've myself learned a lot about IoTeX, I think DePIN in general. I believe other people did as well. We will be posting recaps both on, Spaces, obviously. We'll be doing a YouTube recap and a text recap afterwards, so everyone in the community, both StealthEX and IoTeX, will be able to catch up in case they missed it. And yeah, let's give the man a round of applause. Well deserved.
Oh, thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks for asking about him. Thanks for inviting me. That was great. Appreciate it.
Always. Thank you for coming.
All right. Thank you, guys.
Well,
What were
thank you.
Bye,
Bye.
guys.